You know, it's been a couple of weeks since I did a video that pissed off a substantial portion of my audience. So today I thought I would rectify that by doing a video on something that's not gun related, but something that I think is very American related. And like I said, this isn't just a gun channel, it's a whatever the fuck I want to do channel. And I want to talk about immigration. Now I know that's a touchy subject with a lot of people, but today I want to talk about it in kind of an intelligent way, I hope. You know, maybe that'll be a first for me, but I want to try to do that today. I want to talk about what I think actually needs to be done and whether I agree with the wall or not. We talked about this a lot in live chats recently, so I thought I would just do a video so everyone knows my position and then you can hate me for it once you know it. First off, I'm going to say I am not a proponent of open borders in any way. I think that strong, controlled borders are essential to the safety and security of our country. I think that's the only way that you make sure that only the people who actually want to come here and be Americans get in. I don't want people who want to come here and make America into, a little Guatemala or a Islamic state. I want people who want to come here because they like the way things are done here, not because they want to bring the way things are done where they're at here. And that may not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but hopefully that doesn't offend a lot of people. But I know what's going on. So I believe in strong borders. But do I believe in a wall? No, I don't. In fact, most people don't that I know. I'm in a position where I've got to speak to multiple border agents. Even one that is I forget what they call, like an outpost commander or some such thing. And none of them want a full wall. In fact, every time I talk to someone that's from Arizona, Texas, etc., and I say, what do y'all think of the wall? They're like, it's stupid. And every time I talk to someone who's like, I want a wall, they're always from like Iowa or Ohio, and very seldomly know anything about the actual immigration issue that's going on our southern border. In fact, if you actually look at numbers, there's a lot of reasons to not really worry that much about the southern border. But there are some things I think need to be done down at the southern border. Because I think there's three things we need to focus on here. When we're talking about illegal immigration, I think there's three things we need to stop or control. And I think there's very specific ways to do that. And I don't think a wall plays much of a role in any of it. There's three things, like I said. The things we need to stop are drugs, then the violence they bring with them, dangerous people that can come across our border. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, terrorists have never been known to come across the southern border. Well, that's true, but just because they haven't doesn't mean they won't. Up until 9/11, they hadn't been known to fly planes into buildings, but that didn't mean they weren't going to do it. So I think we need to secure it against bad people coming across the southern border. And three, we need to deal with the issue of immigrants coming in and taking jobs and hurting the job market. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, they don't hurt the job market. They don't drive down wages. All that's a rumor. No, that's true. They do drive down wages. Pella Windows here in Oregon won't give their employees raises because most of their staff is illegal aliens, and they'll just hire more if people ask for a raise. I know people that have worked there for 8, 9, 10 years and can't get a raise because they're flat out told, we will get rid of you and hire a Mexican worker for minimum wage. So that is repressing wages. So those are the three things we need to take care of: drugs and the violence, bad people, and protecting our jobs and our economy. So here's the things I think we need to do to deal with all three of those. And none of it involves a wall. Now, I do believe we do need some walls. We need walls in high traffic areas, entry points, etc., so that bad guys can't just mix in with everybody else. When you have crowds of people coming across, it's real easy for bad guys to mix in. That's why I think we need walls anywhere there's heavy entrances or heavy foot traffic of people trying to enter. Anywhere that there is going to be people driving through, etc., we need walls, and we need a way to control the crowds so that we can sort them out. So walls play a very important part in security, just not a big, long wall. In places where people have to crawl across one or two at a time, I don't worry about a wall. Plus, walls don't work, because here's one thing about the Border Patrol. Their average response time is between several hours and a couple of days anytime there's an incident. A wall's not going to stop someone if they have several hours. You can cut through. We've even shown that it's easy to cut through the iron walls that Trump is supporting right now. can be done in a matter of an hour, and you could be gone before Border Patrol ever got there if you wanted to sneak a lot of people through the fence. So they're really not that effective. And it's not really cost effective for like drugs and everything to go across that way. So it's mostly people that are coming up to have a job illegally or get welfare, etc., that come through like the deserts and stuff. So the way we stop that, let's deal with the third thing first. Let's deal with the people coming in for jobs and coming in and getting on welfare, etc. Well, that's easy to fix, and it doesn't involve a wall. It just entails enforcing the employment laws that are on the books now. If a company's hiring illegal labor and you can show they're hiring illegal labor, hit them hard. Don't do like they do Pella, where they come in every 5 years, round them all up, book them, let them back go, and they're back to work the next day with a different name on their name tag, and Pella gets fined like $200 a person. And that is nothing to them. Actually shut them down for a while. Make them feel the sting of hiring illegal aliens. Hold them criminally accountable if they knowingly do so multiple times. If you take away the incentive for people to come across here and get jobs, well, then they won't come across. If the jobs don't exist, the incentive's gone, so why are they going to risk their lives crossing the desert? Only people coming up here for safety would be doing that, and that's asylum issue, so that's totally different than people just coming across here and taking jobs. The other thing is the welfare issue. Here, that's real simple to deal with. If you don't live here legally, you don't get welfare. If you're not a citizen, you don't get health care, you don't get driver's license. If you get caught driving without a license, you're arrested. If you get caught going into a hospital and seeking medical treatment and you're not a citizen, you get arrested and deported. I'm sorry, a lot of people are like, oh, it's inhumane. It's not inhumane. I'm not saying don't treat them. I'm just saying after you treat them, send them back. They're a criminal. They came here illegally. I'm not a big fan of people who break the law. I obey laws that I don't like all the time. Even gun laws I don't like all the time. Every time I go into a gun shop and I have to fill out a 4473, I don't like that. But I do it because it's the law. I don't go buy my guns black market on the street because I obey the law. And I expect nothing less of anybody who wants to come here and be an American. If they don't respect the law, then they don't know what it takes to be an American. So as far as dealing with people coming across for jobs, welfare, etc., just don't give it to them. Make it to where they can't have it if they're not a citizen, and they'll stop coming for those reasons. Take away the incentive, you take away the traffic. So now let's deal with the other thing. Let's deal with bad people coming across the border. Potential terrorists, etc. That's where we need the walls. That's where we need border security. And it isn't border security in the form of a great big concrete wall, because that's not going to stop anyone. Because here's the main thing. Most bad guys come in through airports, and more come through across the northern border than the southern border. More people are stopped because of the terrorist watch list coming down from Canada than coming up from Mexico. But like I'm saying, that doesn't mean it'll always be that way. So we do have to have security at the southern border to stop these people from mixing in with large groups of people coming across. That's where walls play a part in certain areas. But a more important thing we need to do is get more Border Patrol agents and give them better equipment. Right now, if you start as a Border Patrol agent, and it's not an easy job, you start in the low 30s, the mid 30s, $30,000 a year. You know, you're in that $30,000 to $36,000 a year tax bracket, income bracket, I should say. That's a horrible pay for what they do. That's like military pay, and the military is way underpaid. So they have 2,000 positions that are unfilled and have been unfilled for a very long time because they can't get recruits for the position. And because they get such low pay, it's hard to get people that won't say, yeah, I'll close my eyes for 15 minutes a day for $10,000, a month, from drug traffickers, etc. So we run into a problem where we're creating an ineffective Border Patrol force simply because we don't want to pay them. So I'm all for raising their budget from $1.6 billion to $5 billion if a lot of that goes for pay raises and hiring new agents. If they were starting off at, say, $65,000 to $70,000 a year, I'd be okay with that because of the job they do. And then if they topped out at $120,000 instead of $75,000 or $80,000, I'd be okay with that too. And that's a good, honorable paycheck for good, honorable, hard work. And I think you'd have a much broader base of people to choose from if they were paid properly. We would have more people, they'd be able to respond, we'd be able to run more controls, and we'd be able to have more control elements like drones, etc., monitoring areas, and our response time wouldn't be 7 hours, it could be 7 minutes. So that's something we need to do to stop bad guys from coming across. That's just properly pay our border security. Hire more of them. Give them better equipment. Now, a lot of people are like, we need to beef up the entry areas, and that's what the wall will do. Because once we beef up the entry areas, the other people start going across the other areas. No, they're not going to start driving their semi-trucks across the desert. And a lot of people say, we only x-ray 20% of the trucks, so that shows we need to beef up at the security. No, we only x-ray 20% because we know there's no real point in x-raying all of them. And if we did, we'd shut down the highway systems because people got to come across, people got to be able to flow back and forth for commerce. So they've made a calculated guess of how many they need to stop without actually interfering in legitimate trade. So that's never going to change at the big border entries. And they're never going to start driving their semi-trucks across the desert. So that's a concern not worth worrying about. So you just say, we need more agents, we need to pay them well, and we need to be able to respond quicker. And that's how we keep bad guys from coming across the border. And then we have to deal with the last thing, which was the first thing on my list, and that's drugs. Right now, the cartels, they ship most of their drugs across in big semi-trucks, etc. This whole notion of people carrying backpacks across the desert full of drugs is just not one of reality. It's one from television and the movies. Just like the whole thing about how they kidnap all these people's families and then no, that's garbage. It doesn't happen very often. That is so rare. They will sometimes kidnap the family of someone who's already a legitimate member of their cartel to use as leverage against them from turning on them, etc. But most of their mules and their coyotes are people from like Ecuador, people that don't have any family in Mexico. They're immigrants that come into Mexico and then they get used for this. So that's mythology. So it's just really not cost effective to send a bunch of people who could disappear or lose the product or get arrested easily with backpacks full of cocaine. It's so rare that happens. What they usually come across on is big trucks or come in airplanes or on boats because it's much more cost effective to do that because they know the government has made that calculation of we're going to stop about 20% of the vehicles. So they know, hey, we can put 100% of our cargo on different trucks. At most, we're probably going to lose 20% of it, and we can write that off as a cost of doing business. And that's why they're able to still flourish. And that ain't going to change no matter whether you build a wall or not. In fact, it'll probably get even harder to catch them if you build an entire wall and there's only 1 or 2, 3 spots to come through. Now, like I say, I do believe in walls in like high-density population areas to keep people from just wandering back and forth and entry areas, etc., because it does help crime. But as far as stopping drug trafficking, it just wouldn't do it. So a big continuous wall isn't needed. Like I said, what we need to do to stop the drug trafficking is deal with our archaic Puritan drug laws. If this stuff wasn't illegal, I don't think as many people would even want to do it. And that's been borne out in other countries that have made drugs legal, that there's only a certain percentage of people that are self-destructive or stupid enough to destroy their lives with drugs. And that doesn't change whether it's illegal or legal. And since they can get them easily, even though they're illegal, those people are still going to be self-destructive. So how many people destroy their lives every day with alcohol? Destroy their lives, their families' lives, and their bodies with alcohol every day. You can't do anything about that small percentage of the population. They're just self-destructive. So make drugs legal, or at least decriminalize them. If they're not criminalized for using them, well, then they're not going to pay high prices on the street. There's not going to be a cost incentive to bring these drugs in and pay and sell them at really high prices to people who know they have to get them through those illegal means. Like here in where I live, where marijuana is legal. I used to see pot dealers all the time. My kid used to deal with pot dealers all the time. And I asked him the other day, I was like, hey, whatever happened to these friends of yours that I know used to deal pot? And he's like, well, they don't do it anymore. They've had to stop because people can just walk down to the store right here and buy it. So the only market they had were underage kids. And he said more underage kids are going to vaping instead of going to marijuana. So they didn't have business, so they dried up. And I've seen that actually happen in a couple of his friends that I knew were big pot dealers that now are pretty decent kids. So if you just decriminalize them, deal with our stupid laws, that takes away the incentive for bringing all this drugs and violence. And if you deal with the drugs, you've gotten rid of a lot of the violence also. Because a great deal of the gang violence in this country, and especially the border violence in this country, is drug related. Gang violence is usually either two things, turf related or income related, and that's usually dealing with drugs and prostitution. And drugs always brings prostitution with it too. And I'm not against prostitution. Sober prostitution, I think, is a wonderful thing. I think what kind of caring, giving person actually goes into. I look at prostitutes like I look at nurses and teachers. Wow, they're doing a hard job for for not the best pay in the world, and we should respect them. I know I'm probably going to piss off some people with that, but that's just the way I feel about prostitution. I think most people know how I feel about prostitution. Hell, I would be doing it if I could make money at it, but unfortunately, my body has betrayed me. So, as you see, I know this is rambling and it's a rant and everything else, but there are three issues, like I said, we need to really deal with, and none of them are solved with a wall. They are solved with a lot more funding to border security. They are solved with a lot stricter border security, and they're funded with dealing with a bunch of the incentives in this country that draws the bad things in. So if we just did those things, and believe me, I'm, like I said, no fan of illegal immigration. I want it to stop. I even want, and this is going to be risky for me here, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, I want legal immigration to decrease. Until we can get a handle on letting just the right people in, and I'm going to say, yes, there are right people. People who want to come here and commit terrorist acts, they're the wrong people. People who want to bring Sharia law, those are the wrong people. They don't want to come here and be Americans. They just want to be whatever they were here using our resources. And I don't agree with that. If you come to America, I don't care what color your skin is, I don't care what sexual orientation you are, I don't care what religion you are, etc. As long as you come here to be an American, not come here to change America. And I don't mind that you have subtle influences on culture. We're a culture of subtle influences. But when you try to take control, that's a different thing. And I know this is going down another angry rant that a lot of people would probably call me racist over. But there are a lot of things we need to change. But building a big wall isn't one of them. We do need to raise the budget for border security, and it needs to go to the right things. Oh, and as far as bringing down, while I'm ranting on it, one of the main things I think they need to deal with about legal immigration is getting rid of the visas that allow big corporations to bring slave labor in from other countries on these visas that are held by the company so that they can get computer programs, electrical engineers for a quarter of what they should be paying them, and then tell them, if you ever ask for a raise, we're going to send you back to your country and bring someone else in on the visa because we hold it, you don't. That's the worst system I've ever seen. That was built on the fallacy that Americans just aren't smart enough to program computers and stuff. And we very much are. I think history's shown that. That was just a ruse by big companies to be able to bring in cheap labor. It's basically modern day slavery, and I don't agree with it. So I think that this rant pretty much makes my opinions on immigration clear and what we need to do to stop the illegal immigration and the bad things that come with illegal immigration. And drug trafficking, etc., human trafficking, etc., all those crimes. If we take away incentive, then we take away any reason for them to do it. And that would deal with most of the things. We beef up border security to keep the bad people out, but we beef it up in the right way. So I'm all for strong borders. I'm all for higher pay for the agents. I'm all for more agents. I'm all for decreasing immigration. I'm all for wiping out illegal immigration. I'm all for enforcing the laws that are on the books. I'm all for not giving welfare, etc., to people who are not citizens. And I'm all for punishing companies that hire illegals. And especially, I'm all for changing our archaic Puritan drug laws. So those things I'm for, but a wall, I just think, is a waste of money.